Look around you. Look at the roads, the schools, the hospitals, the technology we take for granted. Now, consider the annual output of your nation, all the goods and services produced. Then, look at the number on the national debt clock. In almost every major developed country, that debt figure exceeds the annual output. But where did this crushing, unimaginable burden come from? The answer is not primarily social programs, infrastructure, or education. The answer is simple, ancient, and terrifying: war. We are still paying for conflicts that ended 50, 70, or even 200 years ago. Today, we confront the ultimate financial transfer, the debt of war, and how every major conflict is silently, brutally funded by the economic lifeblood of the next generation, a generation that was not even born when the bullets first flew. If you believe your taxes pay for the services you receive today, you are wrong. A significant portion of your lifetime earnings is chained to the financial wreckage of the past. The fundamental financial reality of war is that it is too expensive to be funded by taxation alone. When a nation enters a major conflict, the demand for resources is immediate, immense, and non-negotiable. To fund this sudden, explosive need, a government has only three choices: tax its citizens immediately, debase its currency, the silent tax, or borrow. Taxation, though necessary, has limits. If taxes rise too sharply, they choke off the economy that is needed to produce the war materials. Debasement, as Rome taught us, destroys the currency and economic trust. Therefore, the only viable, scalable, and immediate option is massive borrowing. Governments turn to their citizens, their institutions, and increasingly, to other countries, issuing vast quantities of debt, the famous war bonds or liberty bonds. This shift from immediate taxation to massive borrowing is the point of betrayal. The government doesn't tell its citizens they will pay for the war over the next 100 years. It uses the rhetoric of patriotism and duty. It asks the current generation to lend their savings to the state. This is an ingenious psychological operation. By buying a bond, the citizen feels they are participating in the war effort, a noble sacrifice. But the financial reality is that those bonds, those promises to pay, don't vanish when the conflict ends. They become permanent sovereign debt, transferred from the private hands of the original lenders to the nameless, voiceless future generation of taxpayers. The soldier who buys a war bond with his savings is effectively signing an IOU that his unborn grandchild will have to pay interest on through higher taxes and currency debasement decades later. Consider the world wars. Before WWI, global powers were generally on the gold standard, a system that imposed fiscal discipline by tying currency value to a finite amount of gold. I made this system instantly impossible. No government could finance 4 years of modern industrial warfare, the massive production of tanks, planes, and artillery, without printing money. Britain, France, and Germany all immediately suspended the gold standard. Once the discipline of gold was gone, the path to massive, unconstrained borrowing and debasement was wide open. World War II repeated this pattern, leaving the victorious United States with a national debt that temporarily exceeded 120% of GDP, an obligation that would take decades of sustained economic growth and, critically, inflationary policy to manage down. The consequences of this debt transfer are subtle but profound. First, the intergenerational burden becomes fixed. The interest payments on these historical war debts become a mandatory, non-discretionary line item in every subsequent budget. They act as a permanent financial drag on economic innovation and social spending for the next generation. Second, war debt accelerates the use of the silent tax. The only way to manage multi-trillion-dollar war debts without politically painful default is to inflate the currency, to deliberately devalue the dollar, meaning that the debt itself is paid back with cheaper money. This means the war is paid for by the savers and the prudent today, not by the politicians who declared it or the financiers who funded it. It is a hidden permanent tax on your purchasing power. This destructive cycle did not end with the cessation of major hot wars. It merely evolved. Today, we live in the age of the permanent military-industrial debt complex. Continuous immense defense budgets, often justified by vague geopolitical threats, are now financed perpetually through the same borrowing mechanisms. This ongoing, non-stop expenditure is essentially a war that never ends, and the debt from this perpetual conflict accumulates year after year, guaranteeing that the burden continues to be transferred to the future. This is the new financial anchor, creating a fixed, unmovable demand for credit that forces central banks and governments to prioritize debt service over the financial health of the average citizen. This structure ensures that debt is not merely a byproduct of war, it is a prerequisite and a legacy. Understanding the cycle, the necessity of debt and conflict, the patriotic illusion of bonds, and the long-term transfer of financial burdens is crucial to decoding modern state finance. You must see the debt clock not as a static number, but as the accumulated, unpaid bill for all the wars fought by your ancestors. If this unflinching analysis of the financial history of conflict provides you with the clarity to understand the true cost of power and the mechanisms that determine your financial future, please take a moment to subscribe. By subscribing, you arm yourself with the strategic intelligence needed to recognize the debt chains linking you to the past and safeguard your economic future. Next time, we journey to 18th century France to explore the dangers of monetary hubris taken to the absolute extreme. We will meet the man who convinced an entire monarchy he could make paper money in foreign land. Speculation replaced the national treasury. Join us as we uncover the story of John Law's great scheme, the financial con that destroyed France's economy. You will not want to miss this essential examination of the very first spectacular failure of a national central bank.